Alright, thank you once again for clicking on Rank the Movies, our latest video. It's Wednesday, so it's time to put up another top 10 list. This week, we're talking DC movies. It's the start of an off and on series I'm going to be doing on comic book movies. I've got this one, I've got one about Batman animated films, I've got one about, coming up, about the rest of the animated DC universe. Of course, we're going to talk Marvel at some point over the next weeks. There will be some videos being uploaded in between, but we're going to start off with DC live-action movies. So, I didn't separate this into the DC universe versus the non-DC universe films, because one, there's only 7 DC universe movies, so I can't do a top 10 list, and two, most of those movies suck. I mean, various levels of bad, but Suicide Squad is awful. Dawn of Justice is, and so is Justice League. Man of Steel isn't bad, but it's not great. So there's just so much blech. I'd rather just do it this way, and if some of those, the good ones, end up on here, more for them. So we're talking top 10 live-action DC movies. Our honorable mention, The Losers. So before we get into this movie, I want to point out that this is actually a DC imprint. Meaning the comics don't have that huge DC logo on it. It has a different company's logo, but in the end it's owned by DC, and DC raked in the money from both the comic and the movie. So I'm counting those in this review. The Losers is about a group of basically a US Army platoon of kind of black op mercenaries who go and do a job. They get burned by an even blacker op group, and they're presumed dead. They end up deciding to take revenge and try to score as much revenge as they can and get themselves back into America, because one, who wants to live in South America, in poor South America, and two, who wants to be remembered as being dead when you're still walking around alive. It is a great movie. It has a lot of good humor in it. You get Chris Evans, who is like your comic book mainstay actor here, before he becomes Captain America. Most of these people do go on to do a lot of other comic book movies, and most of them end up working for Marvel as well. It is a really good movie. If you've never seen it, check it out. But let's hit the real list now. Number 10, Batman Forever. I like Val Kilmer's Batman movie. People are going to disagree with me, but I do like it. I like Tommy Lee Jones. I like Jim Carrey playing our villains. I think they do a really good job. I think they introduce Robin well. It is a good Batman movie. It is not by far the greatest Batman movie ever made, but it is definitely a good Batman movie. It's got some strong acting. I do like Val Kilmer as the Dark Knight, and he doesn't do a half-bad Bruce Wayne either. And again, if you want to see some strong villains and how to make multiple villains in a movie work, this is really one of those first examples of it done really well in the more modern age of movies. Because you have the Riddler, you have Tommy Lee Jones. They actually kind of share the balance of being the main villain, although I think through the plot, Riddler ends up becoming more of the A villain, with Two-Face dropping into more of a B villain role, but they're still definitely, they try to keep them on par for as much of the movie as they can. It tells a good story, and it's definitely worth checking out. Number 9, Wonder Woman. One of the DCU movies actually worth talking about. I was pleasantly surprised with Wonder Woman, because I was very disappointed with a lot of what DC was doing, and I've generally always been more of a DC fan. I like their heroes more than I liked Marvel, and this was before the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I've always leaned more towards DC. So seeing them put out these average or awful movies made me sad, but this was actually really good. I like what they did with Wonder Woman. I like the story they told. Because they told a nice story that really was kind of Wonder Woman's origin, leading her into the crap fest that is Dawn of Justice. But it's there. You're back in World War I, and you've got a good story behind it. You get Chris Pine playing her love interest, who does a great job with it. And it's a good movie. You get Ares as the villain. Who doesn't want Ares as your villain? I mean, he's literally the god of war. So you know you're getting good war out of it. If nothing else, you're getting a good war out of it. It's a fun movie. It's definitely worth checking out. And again, it's one of the few DCU movies that I felt actually did very well. and deserves the sequel it's going to be getting. I'm kind of curious how they're resolving some issues I've already seen in the trailer, but we'll see what they do with them. Number 8, Jonah Hex. Probably the only live-action DC movie I could put on this list that would get me a more huh from people who've seen it would be Green Lantern. But I like this movie. Most people say this is an awful crapshoot of a movie. I really like it. One, it's Josh Brolin. I've already stated my enjoyment of Josh Brolin in our previous video. I love Josh Brolin. He is such a good actor. I enjoy watching him in things. And he is good in this role. He does a good job as Jonah Hex. Basically, Jonah Hex, it's a Western comic book. And he takes play, and he has some supernatural powers, but it's an old-timey Western film. He's out trying to stop John Malkovich, who plays our villain, who used to be Jonah Hex's commander during the Civil War. By the way, Jonah Hex fought for the Confederacy. Just as a note there. But it is a general from the Civil War who is now trying to find this powerful ordinance so he can basically recapture the Union and overthrow America. You get Michael Fassbender as our B-villain, who plays kind of a weird Irishman working for John Malkovich, but he does a really good job. This is before he started playing Magneto and doing a lot of the roles that got him actually noticed as an actor, but he does a great job in this movie. And you have Megan Fox playing a prostitute, which seems appropriate at the time. It's a fun movie, it's a good movie. It's like 80 minutes, so it's not a long movie. I get why people have problems with it, but I can overlook those problems and just see it as a decent story being told. Number 7, V for Vendetta. This is another DC imprint, but most people know it's a DC movie by this point in time. Every 5th of November, this is what you gotta watch. Because you gotta remember the 5th of November. If you don't know what the plot of this movie is, I'm assuming you're living under some type of rock. So I'm not gonna dig too deep into what the plot is, but I do like this movie. I like what it says about the media and where, although it's taking place in England, this is definitely a story that kind of shows where we as a society could be heading at any given moment. Just with the right winds shifting and politics shifting, you could totally end up in that kind of a world where everything is controlled by a figurehead government and you're just kind of living your life to the beat of their drum and being told what you're supposed to know and not actually looking into other things and being told a bunch of stuff is completely off limits because they might actually make you think and experience things. It is a great movie. Again, if you've never seen it, check it out. I mean, we've got a couple of months before November 5th, so you got more than enough time to get a copy of it. It is a good movie, and it's definitely worth watching. Number 6, Batman Returns. I watched this one for the holidays. This one, I will accept an argument that this is not a Christmas film, but it definitely has enough holiday December. You get a great tree. A person dies during a tree lighting. That big Christmas tree in Gotham, Alfred's buying presents. It's so Christmassy and fun, and you get the Penguin. Look at that Danny DeVito makeup. That would scare young children. This was aimed at children. It was amazing. I didn't care that much for this movie when I was a kid, but as I've grown up, I really like this one's moved up on my list of favorite Batman movies. I think Michael Keaton coming back and doing this role again was a very good choice. He did a great job with it. Michelle Pfeiffer is a great Catwoman, and Danny DeVito plays a magnificent Penguin. I like what they did with him. I like the design they gave him, making him look more deformed than anything else to kind of help explain why he is the way he is. Because he's always been, in the comics, a rich kid who's just been short and kind of fat, who then decides to go evil after all of his money is lost. Here we have a deformed rich kid who basically gets tossed into a river by his parents when he's a baby. And now he's coming back to seek revenge on the city that basically shunned him. Way more interesting. It is a good movie. It's definitely worth checking out. I love Batman, so obviously a bunch of Batman movies are going to make this list. Number 5, Watchmen. Another one people are going to say, that won't agree with this position. But I have enjoyed this movie. It isn't great. It isn't perfection, but it's a pretty fun movie. Basically, The Watchmen takes a look at an alternate world where you have different superheroes. And you really don't have comic books at all, because it does ask the question of, if you have actual superheroes running around, why would you write comic books about them? So you actually, one of the great scenes they show towards the beginning in a montage actually looks like it's one of the heroes from the early time period, because there are various heroes through various time periods, obviously, looking like they're stopping the murder of Thomas and Martha Wayne, which I thought was just really fun. Like, it's just a fun little quick scene. But again, like, that might not have happened. Yeah, if there were heroes active then, they might have stopped that mugging. But basically, it's about a team called the Watchmen. They have since been disbanded as Eternal President Richard Nixon outlawed superheroes. But one day, Jeffrey Dean Morgan gets thrown out a window. He plays a character called the Comedian and is brutally murdered, beginning what is believed to be a rash of killings against masks. That puts the rest of the heroes who are part of the Watchmen on watch and get them to start looking into why he was killed, what he was doing, and what's about to happen. Because what's about to happen is an attack on the world, perpetrated by our villain, who also happens to be a member of the Watchmen. It is one of those great types of movies where you're not 100% sure who the villain is until the reveal. And then you go, holy crap, because you thought they actually were one of the good guys, or at least neutral in this whole thing. And then you find out, no, they're our actual villain. It is a very well done movie. It is long. I'm not going to lie, it is a long movie, but it's worth the trip. It is an entertaining movie. Number 4, The Dark Knight. Christopher Nolan did a great job with this movie. It is, for a Batman set in a realistic world, it is about as good as you can get. You get how the Joker is in this world, and it's acceptable. How you get a man like Harvey Dent to become Two-Face, they do a great job telling that story. Again, this is another superhero movie where the story is what's worth watching. It's not just a Batman movie where he's beating people up, it's a story being told. You get to see the story unravel and unfold, with Harvey Dent being the White Knight of Gotham and then becoming the deranged Two-Face who's looking for revenge. But not even for revenge, but for revenge against Batman, Jim Gordon. He's looking for satisfaction for what has been taken from him. And then you have underlining all of that the Joker, who's just trying to create havoc. He's trying to create anarchy in Gotham. And you get to start to see those connections between him and Batman, and why the Joker would keep coming back and keep going after Batman, because he feels some type of connection with him, because, well, the Joker is representing anarchy, Batman almost represents order. And so it's just some great moments. It is a great movie. Like I said, for a realistic Batman, you can't do better than this, and they didn't. Dark Knight Rises, it's not terrible, but I can tell you it's not going to be one of the next 3. Number 3, Shazam. This is my favorite DCU movie. I really enjoyed it. I think they did a great job, but I've always liked this character, even back when it was called Captain Marvel. And no, not to be confused with the Captain Marvel from Marvel. This is DC's Captain Marvel, who they then renamed Shazam. If you want to hear more about my rant on that, check out the Best of 2019 video. I go in a little more ranty on that, but I'm not now. Basically, you have a boy named Billy Batson who is chosen to be the new guardian of Earth. Bestowed upon him are the powers of various gods. When you take each of those gods' names, the first letter of each of those names, you create the word Shazam, which he says to bestow him with his power. He finds all this out right before the person who's bestowing the power is killed, because the 7 deadly sins have been released onto the world and are going to try to destroy it with the help of a mad scientist. So Shazam, this kid, Billy Batson, who's maybe early teens, has to figure out how to be a superhero and how to actually save the world. It is a great movie. I really enjoy it. I think they did a great job with the casting, and I really think again, we got a good story going here. because it's not just focused on, one aspect. They kind of give a little depth to everything that's going on, and it's done very well. Number 2, Red. Again, we're looking back at the DC imprints, as Red is a DC imprint as well, but it's such a fun movie. Basically, you got Bruce Willis, you got Morgan Freeman, you got John Malkovich, and Helen Mirren are all ex-assassins, ex-mercenaries, ex-black operatives who are retired. Retired and extremely dangerous. As they go to try to figure out why the people of one of their missions is being killed off, why the people who went on a mission with them are being killed off. Along the way, Bruce Willis is starting a relationship with Mary Louise Parker, so he drags her along because now she's a target as well. It is a great movie. It is a fun movie. It has a sequel. The sequel's a thing, but it is a really fun movie. It is a great performance by Bruce Willis. Morgan Freeman is amazing, as Morgan Freeman often tends to be. John Malkovich is really great in this movie. Mary Louise Parker, Helen Mirren. You get Richard Dreyfuss as your villain, which that's just awesome, because Richard Dreyfuss is another great actor. I love Richard Dreyfuss, and to see him play the villain of a movie, that is great. And you kind of, again, get a nice little moment of, when he's introduced, he's a jerk, but you're not really going, oh, he's our main villain. He's just kind of there. They're interrogating him to get information about who they think the main villain is, and then, no, he was the main villain. They just could have shot him right then and there, and the last act of this movie could have been solved. It is such a good movie. I highly recommend, if you've never went out and seen Red, go check it out. It is worth it. And that brings us to the number 1 movie, Batman. Tim Burton directing, Michael Keaton starring as the Dark Knight, and Jack Nicholson portraying the Joker. I've loved this movie since I was a kid. This movie, I think, is about the same age as I am. It is a great film. And it has such, even the poster for it, this was the theatrical poster. It's so subtle. But I would totally want to go see this movie. Because it's just bat symbol. You don't need to put anyone's name on it, a bat symbol. Yeah, I'm going to go see the movie about the bat symbol. It's got such great design, such great architecture to Gotham. It really feels like a living, breathing place. And as you move through it, you get Jack Nicholson as the Joker, who is a completely different Joker than Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight, but it is still such a good Joker. He does such a great job bringing that insanity to life. You get a story of the Joker. I meant to say this at the top of the video, now that I've said Joker about 8 times. Joker should have made this list. The reason it didn't is because if you check my top 100, best of 2009, I've talked about the Joker a lot in the last couple of weeks. So I omitted that movie. Just because I wanted to try to talk about other movies I hadn't talked about a lot. So I did omit Joker. It is a great movie too. Check it out. Anyways, back to Batman. Again, Michael Keaton does a great job as Batman himself. And it's just a fun movie. If you've never seen it, fix that. Really, it is a great movie. If you like Tim Burton, if you don't like Tim Burton, it's a good movie. He does a good job directing this movie. It is a fun movie. Alright, well those are my top 10 DC live action movies. If you think there's something I missed, someone's going to name a Superman movie, but do not care for any of those. Not that I'm against Superman, I'm just not a Superman fan. But if you think I missed a DC movie, leave me a comment. If you want to subscribe to the channel, hit subscribe, give me a thumbs up, like the video, and I'll see you next week.